Уважаемые участники, мы начинаем через несколько минут. Просим отключить мобильные телефоны или перевести их в беззвучный режим. Занимайте, пожалуйста, места. Если кому нужен синхронный перевод, наушники можно взять при входе в зал. Уважаемые участники, в главном зале начинается церемония открытия. Просим пройти в главный зал и занять места.
Дамы и господа, для приветствия участников форума на сцену приглашается вице-министр финансов Республики Казахстан Даурен Кенбиил.
Daurian Kane-Bille, Vice Minister of Finance of the Republic of Kazakhstan, is invited to the podium. Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me read the Prime Minister address, Mr. Bekhenov. Dear friends, I am happy to welcome participants and the guests of the annual Eurasian Development Bank meeting and forum, which plays the most important role in the participating countries and deepening Eurasian integration. Two-thirds of their project has integration effect, increasing economic ties between the countries of the region. The bank is a catalyzer of chief transboundary projects in the infrastructure, in the industry, agriculture, and digitization. At the same time, Eurasian Bank became a leader on non-sovereign funding. The long-term vision of the economy and industrial expertise of the bank is quite demanded in the Eurasian Economic Union and outside of this union. We are to foster the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So the agenda of the annual meeting reflects the problems and priorities of the banks, including the rational, balanced use of the water-energy nexus in Central Asia. I'm sure that the participants will be able to open the potential for the interaction of the countries of the region. I wish to the Eurasian Bank of Development new success in their activities and all the participants of the annual meeting interesting communication and fruitful work. Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, Mr. Bektenov. Thank you so much. To welcome participants of the forum, we invite Chair of the Eurasian Bank, the Governor, Mr. Nikolai Podguzov. Dear friends, good morning, good afternoon. I'm very happy to welcome everyone at the annual meeting of the Eurasian Development Bank. We have a lot of guests here who represent International Development Bank, international financial organizations, the public authorities, representatives of the companies and expert community, journalists. All of us, we are working to develop the Central Asia as a region for the benefit of the economies of our shareholders and the people who live in this huge and very interesting region. That's why I'd like to thank everyone who has responded to our invitation and today is participating in the annual meeting. I'm sure that our today's talk will continue to establish opportunities for the region development, and in order to do more projects that would be needed for the people and would facilitate sustainable and fast growth of our region where we operate. My presentation, I'd like to cover some issues that Central Asian region faces and probably to reflect how international development banks such as Eurasian Development Bank can tackle those problems. Probably each international development institute is often asking what needs to be done so that life on Earth would become better for the entire humankind, for the people who live there, And this issue, this question, it consists of what needs to be done in order to alleviate poverty, to bring clean, potable water, to increase and improve transport connectivity, to implement innovations and build new infrastructure. And these questions, they form global challenges. And global challenges are mostly united. And when we need to talk about practice, we need to answer the question how. And the question how is how to provide clean, potable water for the population of arid climate areas, how to provide transport connectivity for the regions that are landlocked, how to provide fast and sustainable growth for the economies of countries that that are rich in resources. And I'm sure that these effective, efficient answers to the question how are impossible without considering local specifics of specific areas. And thus, I am confident that in order to answer successfully the question how, it's important to localize global universal approaches. So if we are to come up with one word to the activities of the international development banks, I would use the word globalization. And I'd like this globalization to use as an approach and a term in the activities of the international financial institutions, especially in Central Asia. Now talking of challenges. The first challenge is a need to provide not only sustainable but also fast economic growth in the Central Asia region. And this is to improve quality of life in Central Asia and to increase the role of the region on the global area. Since 2000, the GDP has tripled. Although this growth is not enough to reach the developed countries, the gap in development is 3 times. Level of poverty in some countries is still high compared to average indicators of the lower and middle income countries. So from raw material specialization, you can live well and you don't have to develop in the industry. But we cannot agree with this thesis. The raw material specialization is not available for all regional countries. And for the long term, in order to maintain sustainable growth, we need to increase industrialization, and the industry can increase the added value, and each added value is additional margin and a profit and highly paid jobs and higher income for the people. The gap between the industrialization level of the region and countries with a mid income is significant in Central Asia, unfortunately. In order to remove this gap, the industrial output should increase 1.5 times. The second challenge is connectivity. Probably throughout the world, there are no more difficult situations except for Central Africa, Russian Siberia, and internal areas of South America. 5 Central Asian countries do not have access to the world ocean. And the remoteness of the global markets and high costs on transit, they provide a serious burden. The trading costs are 40% higher, and that leads to the margin being decreased as well as the profit, and it's difficult to build value-added chains And some of the industrial niches cannot appear because the costs are too high. And the Eurasian Development Bank suggests Eurasian transport carcasses, understanding that when west and east to west and south to north transport routes, the Traseka corridors and north to south, the volume of international transit may increase by 40% by aligning such corridors. Improving connectivity in Central Asia means reduced costs, and the region will have a chance to become a transport hub of Eurasia. And that never happened in Central Asia. Even during the Silk Road, the trade routes were west to east. Now there are north to south, meridian-based routes. So this is a historical chance for Central Asia. The next challenge is water, energy, and food nexus and harmonious development in these areas. All of this is interrelated, so that's why the international society talks about a nexus. Almost 30% of the population on Earth lives with limited water resources. More than 40% lives in the areas with critical shortage of water. This situation is going to deteriorate. In 20 years, water consumption will increase more than 50%. And Central Asia is also impacted by all these trends. The region is losing 40% of its water when irrigating farmlands, and 35% is lost in the water supply chains, and 30% do not have access to the safe potable water. Region is in the water stress area, and in 3 years it may have chronic shortage of water. However, for the last year, we see that this fact and this trend is being perceived, and the governments and the companies start doing practical steps. And we support the Kazakhstan initiative on digitization of 3.5 thousand kilometers of irrigation networks and constructing 20 artificial basins and constructing the water meters in water arterials. A lot has been done in Uzbekistan. So we believe at the bank that the water energy nexus is crucial for Central Asia prosperity. That's why we need a comprehensive approach. What needs to be done? First of all, we need to remove the water shortage of 5 to 12 cubic kilometers. We need to provide access to safe potable water for more than 10 million people who live in the region. Thirdly, in order to satisfy growing demand for the energy, we need to unlock hydro potential of the region. And that is possible if we do this together. The EDB belongs to the several dozens of organizations that work throughout the world. And this can be described as a British soccer league, as there is Cup America and Euro soccer, and there is a Premier League organizations with more than 10 billion charter capital and that are impacting the economy, and they are there are international organizations that are working with them. There are different forms of reform and support from the international financial community, and these organizations are forming the question what, the global challenges. However, there is a different group of the international development banks, the so-called championship, where there are first division teams. On the size of international publicity, this league is somewhat inferior to this Premier League, and it includes regional and sub-regional international development banks. They are present on each continent. They work in their niches. They have experience and knowledge on the regional market. Geographically and ideologically, they are close to their governments and their shareholders. And these international banks, they are answering the question how to localize global universal approaches. The cooperation of the international development banks will allow to increase the funding for the participating countries and to solve more effectively global challenges on the regional level. So we do not have only to make syndicates, but we have much more to cooperate on. First of all, it's the capital should be mobilized, which means that no large international development banks can score a goal on their own to build a big infrastructure project for several $billion, whether it's a hydro station or some other transport hub. So the cooperation on capital markets is important, such as buying bonds and lending in hard currency with the subsequent lending in soft currencies, local currencies. There is a demand for that in the developing countries, in the countries where we work actively. Project expertise. They have different project expertise, and if they are united, then we may have very deep knowledge, which will later be used in our regions and in our countries. So joint research is quite important, especially cooperation of international development banks, where there are long-term international efforts are needed. In those projects, international banks, they are anchoring technical assistance. The demand for these tools is growing, and so here we need to merge our efforts, as we do when we plan Kambarata gas or hydropower plant with the World Bank. Implementing transboundary projects is one more perimeter of cooperation of international development banks. Probably these are the most difficult projects that could be organized for the international development banks. And without single efforts on alignment of the infrastructure of different countries, without thorough participation of the development banks, these projects cannot be implemented. So only acting together, the international development banks will allow to reach good results for their quality people and for their participating countries and improve life for the better. The strategy of the EDB means investment until 2026, almost $11 billion in the economy of our shareholders. And our strategy is very well aligned in order for us to develop cooperation with international development banks, because the challenges that we are facing are global. And so here it's impossible to. So I'd like to acknowledge and call the international development banks for the cooperation on all levels, because our efforts to develop the region and Central Asia will allow people to live in our countries and will change their life for the better. And that's the main goal. Thank you for your attention.
Дамы и господа,
Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of Eurasian Development Bank, Nikolai Podkuzov. Thank you so much. Well, now we would like to take a break, a couple of minutes, in order to prepare the stage for a next session today at the Business Forum. And the next session is called Water, Energy and Food in Central Asia, Partnerships and Projects for Sustainable Development. That is why we would like to ask you to stay here in the hall, and in a couple of minutes we will start our next session. Water is alive not only in a biological but in social, economical mean as well. The Central Asia knows about it. The forest from the ocean region fully depends on the water resources from the Aral Sea pool. Nearby the channels and rivers, which are starting from the mountains of Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan and then going down to Uzbekistan, there are 80% of the population live, more than 60 million of people. Based on the forecast, by the mid of the century, the load on the water resources will be increased in 3 times. And it seems that in this situation, the efficiency should be very high, but unfortunately, it does not, in a real life situation, it is not like that. There is the indicators of the water usage efficiency. And the price is pretty low. The average indicator for region 2.5 cubic meters of water is lower for 8 times than the global level. The usage of the water in Central Asia, in general, there is not enough intercommunication between the countries, and none of the parties are not satisfied, because improper usage of the water leads to the ecological problems. But in region for last years, we can see the progress in a complex normalization of the governmental of the legislation presented in a multilateral agreement, and this is the only right and proper way in order to combat nowadays problems in the sector of the water usage. And Eurasian Development Bank is ready to help and support those projects. The project which will satisfy the needs of all of the countries. The Eurasian Development Bank created the regulatory steps which will lead to the reformation of the legislation and the structure in a sphere of the water usage. And the implementation of those 5 steps will lead to the cooperation and will be beneficial for everybody. The Eurasian Development Bank have prepared all of the needed documents, but also participates in a dialogue. In the water energy complex is a key project in Central Asia, and the Eurasian Development Bank will invest more than $400 million. And we believe that the complex and effective management of the pools of the Aral Sea, it is the key not only for the development but for the peace and happy life of all of the population in Central Asia. So we are moving to the session Water, Energy and Food in Central Asia, Partnership and Project for Sustainable Development. And we would like to invite speakers of the session, the chairman of the International Fund, Aral Safety, Mr. Ashat Orazbay. Please, the floor is yours. First Vice Minister of the Water Resources and Irrigation of Republic of Kazakhstan, Bekniyaz Bolat. The head of the regional office in Armenia, World Food Program, UNWFP, Nanna Skau, the regional director in Kazakhstan, Asian Development Bank, Kumar Utsav, the deputy of the representative of UN Development Project in Kazakhstan, Hodjmatov Sukhrop, and the head of the Innovative Finance and International Finance Institutes, Detlefson Michael, Raduga Company, the developer of irrigation equipment, Mr. Sergei Turapin, the moderator of the session, the deputy chairman of Eurasian Development Bank, Mr. Evgeny Vinokurov. Mr. Evgeny, the floor is yours. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm happy to see you at our session, Water, Energy and Food in Central Asia. 127 cubic meters of water presents in Amurdarya and Sirdarya. No more water will be provided. This is a resource, and we need to use it in an effective manner. Out of those 127 cubic meters, 104 are spent for the irrigation, more than 80%. Out of 104 cubic meters, 43 cubic are lost, so not reached the field as well. So this is the calculations. In 4 years, Afghanistan will implement Koshtipa channel. Koshtipa will also take some resources. First, not that much, but further 10 cubic meters per year. And at this moment, the region will shift to chronic water shortage. Nowadays, we are faced with the water shortage during some specific seasons, but in 4 years, we will always face with this problem. And it is crucial, it is important, because on that fact, the peace and the development of the region, like, it all depends. And there is a term in the analysis of the development, the term nexus. This term is already implemented into the Russian language, and it means close relations of something. For example, nexus, water, energy, and food. In Central Asia, this nexus is very important and crucial because it has some values which are difficult even to evaluate. What is our main question? How can we use water resources in order to have enough for everything, for the agricultural sector, for the food security, for the industries, for drinking water, in order to avoid the conflicts based on the water. So this is the main point. Our session is divided into 2 blocks. First, we will talk about the stakeholders, international organizations, development banks, governments, and then we will move to specific solutions and decisions, technologies, processes, interaction. But shortly, in general. And by the end, we will make a questionnaire. I will ask a question to every speaker. What do you think we need to do now, right here, in the nearest time? What should we do in this region, in that sphere? Participants can ask questions as well. They can comment the speech as well. So I would like to encourage you to participate, to have a proper conversation, but technically everybody has limited time, 5 minutes. You can present from your seats. This is a technical point. One more thing. For the forum, bank has prepared a report, drinkable water in the Central Asia. This public presentation will be held tomorrow at 11:30, but today you can go through the conclusions of that report. Second of all, we prepare UNIDA and EDB analysis for the innovative equipment application. And Michael will present later on that. And the irrigation resource and the UN development project together, we discuss a joint project on irrigation, on utilization of the water resource and the storages. So let's start. I would like to ask Mr. Utsav Kumar, the regional representative of the Eurasian Development Bank, as a flagman in an international cooperation in the nexus, water, energy, and food. So we would like to ask you to tell more about the vision of Eurasian Development Bank, especially in the project's perspective. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. It's almost past 12. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor and a privilege to be here at this forum to represent Asian Development Bank at this very important panel. I would like to convey apologies of my Director General, Mr. Eugene Zhukov, who could not be here due to other commitments at the management level. Moving on to the question that has been posed for ADB to ADB in terms of our experience, let me quickly set out by setting the context. I think everybody in the room is aware of it, but just a few points. So first, I will be talking about ADB's support in the context of Central and West Asia region. Now, Central and West Asia for ADB is Afghanistan, Caucasus, Central Asia, Pakistan. So that comprises about 350 million people. And this region we see is facing increasing vulnerability to climate change. And then higher than expected temperature rises are likely to lead to greater water scarcity, expanded desertification, and more extreme weather events like floods, droughts, and heat stress. Warmer temperatures and more unpredictable weather patterns could disrupt fragile ecosystems. A water supply gap of 37% is expected to occur by 2050 unless irrigation systems and other critical water infrastructure are upgraded and modernized, and hence the focus on water in what I'm going to talk about later. And this gap could lead to lower agriculture productivity, more food insecurity, and worse health outcomes. We are already talking about the water, food, energy nexus today, and potential conflicts over scarce resources. At the same time, over the past 50, 60 years, there has been a 30% decrease in glacier surface area as a result of changing climate conditions. The melting of snow caps combined with intensifying weather events have triggered natural calamities such as floods and landslides that are happening more frequently and severely. We are gathered here in Kazakhstan today, and we are all quite aware of the massive and unprecedented floods that the country witnessed earlier this year. So the threats these threats place the achievement of development goals of Central and West Asia DMCs, again Central and West Asia as ADB defines it, at risk. And according to some estimates, these economic impacts from droughts and floods in Central and West Asia could reach about 1.3% of the regional GDP. More precisely, these are from the World Bank. So without adaptation actions, there will be a progressive increase in economic losses and a reduction in the abilities of communities to move out of poverty. ADB is Asia and Pacific's climate bank. Coming to specifically to the question that was posed to us, some examples about how ADB is supporting the region. So let me share some examples. First, in 2022, ADB approved the Climate Adaptive Water Resources Management in the Aral Sea Basin Sector Project. This project is funded through a combination of grants and loans. So that's very important because there is a concessional loan, which is our cheapest modality, and then there is grants, and there is a special resources fund. This particular project aims to enhance food and water security by establishing climate resilient and modernized irrigation systems in the Amu Darya and the Zarafshan river basins. And some of the outputs of the project include modernizing canals, on-farm water management, strengthening policies and institutions for climate adaptive and sustainable water resource management. In Tajikistan, for example, ADB has been actively supporting the government in water resources management in 2 of the 5 river basins in the country. These are the Payanj and the Vaksh river basins with over $160 million investments to date. Under an ongoing project in the Payanj River Basin, ADB is working to boost agriculture production and food security by modernizing and climate-proofing irrigation and drainage infrastructure. Now, it's not just about the projects. In addition to projects, specific technical assistance and comprehensive technical assistance is also being provided to our developing member countries. Again, to share an example from Uzbekistan, we've adopted this approach in Uzbekistan to generate an upstream climate risk assessment for the Amu Darya River Basin. And by identifying the risks in the river basin, for example, floods, landslides, heat stress, we've developed a comprehensive landscape-based approach for a new and innovative program. Just since we're talking about the food, water, energy nexus, I briefly want to mention our support in the energy sector as well. At the regional level, ADB is supporting Tajikistan's reconnection to the Central Asia power system, the so-called CAPS project. This project will help avoid water spillage in Tajikistan and enable the export of renewable hydropower to countries dominated by fuel-based generation, such as Uzbekistan and here in Kazakhstan. Renewable energy development projects like wind, solar, and hydro-related infrastructure, including transmission and distribution lines, now dominate our regional portfolio. I think I'll pause here. Thank you, Chair.
Спасибо, Уцав.
Thank you, Mr. Otsav. What about the trans-bordering projects, international project, or only local ones? So do you have an opportunity to develop those projects?
Our projects, so we have this so-called CAREC platform, CAREC program. So let me just give you a bit of a context there. Now, ADB hosts the CAREC Secretariat. It's a partnership of 11 countries from Central Asia, South Asia, the Caucasus, Mongolia, and the People's Republic of China. ADB hosts and helps to facilitate projects that deliver these regional benefits. And the CAREC program offers a unique regional platform for driving coordinated climate action, and I'll be happy to talk more about it. How are we supporting the water, food, energy nexus, or the challenges emanating from this nexus? So under the CAREC program, we've introduced agriculture and water as a new pillar, with initial activities of the water pillar focusing on Central Asia. A dedicated working group for water pillar was established in 2023 with representatives from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. The CAREC water pillar actually just 10 days back on 17th and 18th June, the CAREC water pillar in collaboration with climate change and agriculture pillars, which are the other pillars, among the other pillars in CAREC, held its first working group meeting in Istanbul, as I mentioned, 10 days back. And the objectives were really twofold. First, strengthen collaboration through evidence-based decision-making. And second, to identify potential areas of investment. And what that working group has done is the government counterparts have identified sort of, as we call it, a long list of transboundary projects in 3 categories: climate resilience and productive water systems, improvement of land and water quality, nexus solutions, and cross-sectoral collaborations. This is the first step. These proposals will be reviewed by the working group, and then after detailed consultations, pre-feasibility studies will be developed. I'll pause here. Thank you.
Окей, услышали. Кроме банка...
Okay, we got you, but besides development banks, there are some specialized international organizations, and in Central Asia, it is the International Fund of Fund to Save Aral, and the target of this organization is to use the water resources properly. And from last year, the management were shifted to Kazakhstan. Secretariat will be located in Astana city. Ashat Tushkidjbaevich, can you see in this situation a historical opportunity to improve coordination in a region, just because the headquarters was shifted to Astana, to the capital city of Kazakhstan? Well, yes, I think that Kazakhstan we see the influence and the opportunities of Kazakhstan in the region, and we know that there are problems with the water resources and it going deeply. For next 3 years, we will try to reach, with, of course, participation of all of the responsible agencies, we will try to reach the best results. And you highlighted the fact that we are talking about regional cooperation, international cooperation, and for that, there is a platform, and the platform calls International Fund Save Aral. And I would like to mention that from the moment of the establishment 31 years ago till nowadays, it is the only organization of such type in Central Asia in which only 5 countries of Central Asia participates. No other organization in our region exists. Of course, we have other organizations, the CIS, Shanghai Organization, and etc. But we don't have the organization which include 5 countries from the region. No, unfortunately, we don't have. That is why the main topic of today's conference is related directly to international financial AIF. Here, I would like to repeat again that this is the only one currently operating organization. It has an experience of 31 years. We have different number of levels within the structure of this organization. The head of the organization, the head of the countries, they have meeting once per 3 years in order to make a decision on operational issues, on functional issues of the organization. We have some management. This management includes the prime ministers of 5 countries responsible for the water energy complex. The main, as you said, there is the executive committee of the International Fund Save Aral, which is an executive body, coordinated body, with the responsibility of the implementation of the decisions which have been done by our top management. 4 main areas of the development. First, water issues. As it was said, the nexus, the interaction of water, energy, and food resources, the usage of the water resources, energy, environmental issues, and social economical development.
In this regard, the fund management in 2021 adopted 2 founding documents, strategic documents that are a basis for our activities. First of all, we call it PRIBAM 4. It's an action plan to support the countries in the basin of Aral Sea. And the second document, it's a program document. There is a regional program to protect the environment for the sustainable development of the countries of Central Asia, which is to tackle issues related to environment and conservation. And in order to implement these issues in IFAS, we have special bodies, which we call MKVK, which is Intergovernmental Water Committee of 5 countries of Central Asia, which is headed by the ministers of water sector, and Intergovernmental Committee on the Environment, which includes 5 environmental ministers. And these structures are quite effective. I'm a new person here in IFAS. I'm not a specialist in water industry. I'm more responsible with the tasks to coordinate activities between the countries and interaction with international partners, financial institutions, including your bank. Recently, I was present at the MKVK meeting where the ministers of water industry met in Kazakhstan, in Shymkent, and making decisions for the very pressing issues we're discussing, such as the effective and fair usage of the available water resources, especially water resources that are formed in transboundary rivers, the rivers that flow through the several countries, which is Amudarya and Isridarya. Time. If time is limited, then let me answer specific questions, because I have quite a lot of information. Are there any comments or questions to the speaker? Just a brief comment to the previous speaker, if I may. The Eurasian Development Bank, which was not very active in interaction with our organization, with IFAS, because it interacts with the region on a national basis. But as to multilateral cooperation, we are now making first steps, which we hope will be efficient. And my previous colleague has mentioned a meeting which happened in Istanbul. It's quite important meeting for us. And he has mentioned CAREC, a program which did not tackle directly water use issues. But now, starting from this year, the ADB has launched a special program which will include the tackling issues related to water resources in our region. So that's why I have discussed it with the management of the ADB. We have reached a good understanding, and now we see that ADB is quite keen, and we have agreed to sign the documents, and I hope that the ADB will be more present in our region. It's already doing issues for the agriculture, for the environment, but water issue is something new for ADB, so we are placing big hopes, and I'd like to thank the management of ADB, represented by a colleague of mine. As we discussed the day before yesterday, the EDB wants to cooperate with IFAS more intensely. In Kazakhstan, we see a combination of water shortage in the south and the floods in the northwest. At the end of the previous year, there was a Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation established in Kazakhstan. And as soon as it was created, it has to tackle crisis management issues. Bulat Bikniyaz, you are a professional in water issues. You are author of the National Water Atlas, and you were researching the West Aral area. What needs to be done in Kazakhstan in the next year or two in order to tackle this problem? Answering your question, I have prepared a presentation. The topic of this panel session is tackling very important issues. Water, energy, and food. I would add the global trend for the environment are the components of nexus, and that is what many governments are lacking. This is the intersectoral cooperation. So water here is crucial, and this needs to determine the economic policies of the countries. And that's why we have the concept for the water management for 2024-2030 in Kazakhstan. The water economy in Kazakhstan needs to be improved as to the water policy of the government and industry management. The structure of the functions and developing new mechanisms for market relations. The goal of the concept is to establish a mature system for the water resource management and to review a number of issues. Taking into consideration international experience, the water management system includes 7 approaches. First of all, it's improving water economy structure. In order to provide for the water security of Kazakhstan, there are several measures to build 20 water basins and reconstruct 15 water basins, upgrade thousands of irrigation canals. This will increase the area of irrigated land from to 2.5 million hectares, and to reduce losses from 50 to 25% for irrigation, and improve the hydrotechnical structures in order to alleviate the threats of emergencies. Quite recently, the Islamic Bank and the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation has signed a framework agreement for $2.2 billion to do this work. Tomorrow, we're going to sign a grant agreement between Eurasian Bank and our ministry for more than $5 million. And I'd like to thank Eurasian Bank for that. Second is increasing efficiency of the water resources usage. The efficient use of water resources will allow us to shift from the water resource management to water demand management without increasing the volume of water intake. As the rivers become shallower and there are big losses in irrigation canals, we need to do a lot of work of water saving. One of 9 million irrigated hectares, water saving technologies are used only in 16%, which is not acceptable in today's realities. In order to stimulate farmers to use water saving technologies, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, we have increased the subsidies to establish irrigation systems, purchasing equipment of drip irrigation from 50% to 80%. And thus, the irrigated land with water-saving technologies by 2030 will increase to 1.3 million hectares. This measure, according to the Water Institute, will save up to 2 kilometers of water, and increase efficiency 1.5 times. The economic and optimal level is to develop existing technologies and develop new mechanisms to limit water use and to make plans to use recycled water use. Third is to improve analytics and software. The water policy is to use qualitative analysis and forecast for water resources. In order to develop the water accounting and forecasting system, an information analytical center is to be established. Such a center has been established already, and digitalization of the water industry is crucially important. Now we are establishing a HydroGov KZ water platform, which will have a single water cadastre reflecting all water entities. Fourth is improving environment. We all know environmental issues, that the lakes become shallower, Aral and Caspian seas, due to climate change and anthropogenic activities. The time is limited, so number 5 is transboundary cooperation, which has been mentioned by a colleague of mine. And here there is important initiative of Kazakhstan to create a water energy consortium. This is to improve the regulatory framework. We've developed a new version of the water code, which is now being discussed by the parliament. In the water code, there are a lot of innovative issues, and the main thing is water saving. And of course, this cannot be tackled without specialists and human resources. There is a decision to establish a specialized university. There used to be Jambu Hydromeliorative Construction Institute. Now there will be a new institute in Taraz. Dear colleagues, implementing this concept is not easy. It has already started, and this large-scale activities will allow us to save up to 10 cubic kilometers of water by 2030 and provide irrigation land up to 2.5 million hectares. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bolat Bikniyaz. Are there any comments, questions, or positions to be voiced? It seems to me that last year, in 2023, in Central Asia, there was some kind of a water catharsis or water renaissance, that water is a topic number 1 for the several decades. And this was always like this, but last year this was a breakthrough moment. And it's quite timely, because we have 4 or 5 years to make large-scale measures. Let us look on the video on irrigative technologies, and then we will discuss specific solutions to be implemented. Effective irrigation. Using modern irrigative technologies and management on the fields is one of the ways to use limited water resources. Irrigative systems not only irrigate water, but also apply digital technologies and implementing modern water-saving technologies. There are a lot of modern approaches to irrigation which solve the problem of water usage, which is micro-sprinkler, underground irrigation, centralized irrigation, high-volume sprayers, These four approaches are most prospective. Laser planning of fields will allow to optimize the water distribution on level fields. High yields are guaranteed. Drip irrigation modern systems allows to pump water into the root system of plants. Rain irrigation imitates natural conditions and saves up to 50% of water, increasing yield to 30%. Digital technologies for precise water accounting allows to save water losses up to 15% when the water is used by farms. By laser planning and digital accounting, there could be 12 kilometers of savings. The region has good market to make irrigation equipment. Eurasian Bank is willing to invest in irrigation. The change to the sustainable technologies is a key to the success of Central Asia. Water problems are solvable if they are solved together. EDB had big diagnostics on this, has published several reports, and we are confident now. One of the main ideas is that water shortage can be tackled by water saving, and in water saving it's most important to do water accounting and implementing water digital technologies. And another idea which we are supporting, our chair said that the region needs our own industry. Without industry, we cannot alleviate the poverty and be ranked in the global labor market. And how we'll tackle this? Would we make microwaves ovens? We want to do this better than China or Korea. So we need an irrigational cluster because we're spending $150–300 million. It's the fifth market in the world on irrigation equipment. So we can first utilize our own market and then do export. So we're starting to work in this area. There are some small and medium manufacturers. We'd like to support this project. Together with UNIDO, we are preparing irrigation equipment. And I'd like to ask Michael Defelson, representative of UNIDO, to say a couple of words on this.
It's a great pleasure to be here again. I think it's the first time I have had the pleasure to be invited to different events organized by the Eurasian Development Bank. I thank you so much for, again, having considered UNIDO to participate. I wanted to start off with also extending warm personal greetings from my Director General, Dr. Gerd Müller, who happens to be the former Minister of Environment in Germany. And he has joined the organization about 2 years ago. And he is very much a hands-on leader. He wants to see things happen. And we are very pleased that we are being given the opportunity to join hands with the Eurasian Development Bank on looking perhaps as a starting point into the irrigation sector in Central Asia. Before I will give my presentation, I just wanted to also inform the audience just a few words on what is UNIDO and what we do. UNIDO is a specialized agency of the United Nations family. We have our own budget, we have our own member states, 173 at the moment. We are based in Vienna, we are comparatively small, and we are a highly specialized technical agency with, I believe, state-of-the-art technical assistance service offering that also captures new areas like smart agriculture, AI, blockchain, biodiversity, and what have you. I just came from Geneva, where we signed a joint declaration with 5 other partners: WTO, ITC, Afreximbank, Islamic Trade Finance Corporation, and the Africa Finance Corporation, to help develop the cotton value chain in Central Africa. And in many ways, there are similarities to the project that is here being discussed in the context of the water, energy, and food nexus, insofar as the thematic topic is highly complex, it is cross-border, it involves a multitude of stakeholders. So I think UNIDO is very pleased to be considered to contribute to this, especially in regard of our established cluster methodology. We have over decades developed and nurtured a specific program on how to go about clustering companies and service providers with the ultimate objective of advancing specific objectives and goals. And in this case, of course, it would be the how to build up a proper irrigation equipment manufacturing and service cluster in Central Asia. We just a few points. I think time is running very fast. A very few points of principles that I think also were mentioned early on in the initial statements by the chairman. First, a single unified vision to address the overall complexity of the water, energy, and food nexus is probably a good starting point for the region to also get the buy-in from the relevant governments, the IFIs, international organizations, and of course also the business sector. We believe it is a critical point that one also ensures a conducive national regional environment where policies and regulations are fully aligned with what needs to happen on the ground. We also nurture the notion that as part of setting up a manufacturing capability, perhaps initially in Kazakhstan, but hopefully to be extended in other neighboring countries, it's very important to have an established information exchange and knowledge sharing platform to ensure that that lessons learned can be quickly cascaded to other beneficiaries and stakeholders. And we believe that like the Eurasian Development Bank, UNIDO is a comparatively small technical assistant agency, and we are known as an honest and neutral broker. We have no vested interests in neither in regard of promoting a specific business sector or a political setup. And I think this might be helpful in also nurturing a truly cross-border initiative that can be supported by all relevant governments. I will stop here. Thank you.
Окей, мы услышали народный.
Okay, we've heard an opinion of international, especially that this cluster is possible to be implemented in Central Asia. But of course, it is a theoretical point of view, and I would like to listen for the feedback of the Turapin Sergei, the head technologist in that question, and first Minister of Kazakhstan. So will it be interesting for Kazakhstan? Please, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Of course, this topic is interesting for us based on the experience of project implementation on the territory of Russian Federation till some specific period of time. We are facing with the issues of the maintenance and the delivery terms. Well, our manufacturer, most of the times they are directed to us because we are the Institute of the Irrigation Development. What do we see? We see very low level of the services provided because there are long terms for the delivery. At the same time, we do understand that simple delay in irrigation will influence on the agricultural sector. And this is what we have been faced with. Sometimes it is the manufacturer or the representative of the agricultural sector. They are not collecting all of the needed things and tools in order to obtain the irrigation. And in regard of the equipment manufacturer, the ministry sets very specific tasks for the proper service provision. And it has to be implemented in a very limited period of time. So this is the only feedback that I have. Thank you so much for the question. Kazakhstan is interested in the implementation of such technologies in the irrigation systems, which allow well, first of all, I would like to shortly go through the history. In 80s in the Soviet Union, laser planning tools have been already implemented. The automated systems have been already created, but everything was started and then lost. Now we are on a stage of new developments and studies. And we already see that in Kazakhstan we have some companies who do the manufacturing processes for some types of the equipment, irrigation equipment. If we are talking about the drinking water, then the pipes that are used now, well, almost all of the pipes expired. That is why for us, it is important to implement new technologies for the pipe production. Those pipes which will not be limited, there will be no problems with the with the UV. So we will try to do everything possible because we are very interested in the production of the irrigation equipment and the equipment for the drinking water. What about subsidiaries? Are there any subsidiaries for the local manufacturer? Yes, I talked about it in the sector of the water nexus. So yes, we can provide subsidiaries in the amount of 80%. Which will allow the manufacturers to start their productions. And other question, together with Michael, we think that there should be 2 steps in the creation of the cluster. First, we need to grow the user and then to prepare the classic general cluster. But where should we create this type of cluster? The irrigation equipment, of course, should be manufactured in the southern region, because Taras, Jambul, those are the cities where we can see the high demand, and we even see that they have started the production. And if we are talking about the drop irrigation, then I think in every city there should be some developments, and because there is like nothing difficult, and if we have more drop type irrigation, then it will be beneficial for everybody. So if we don't have the question that we are moving to Sergey, we know that there are leading manufacturer, China, Turkey, USA. Your organization exists for 80 years and you have more than 1,000 patents. What can you offer to the Central Asia? And in your opinion, what is the specifics of the Central Asia? Well, as you mentioned, yes, we exist for 80 years. And we had one area is the creation of this type of the equipment. And all of the equipment which has been created in the USSR and in Russian Federation went through, I would say, our hands. Or we participated in the development, or we developed some types of the element for the equipment, or we participated in the testings. In general, Central Asia, it's pretty interesting region, and here we can apply all of the types of the water-saving technologies, starting from the equipment for the like a water catcher, and we can use as well the equipment which will provide irrigation for 1.5 or 2 hectares, so not that big areas. With our, well, is it my is floor mine, or it is just a feedback? Because I can actually continue to talk for a long time on that topic. So that is why, yes, I would like to clarify. In general, we have created an association for the equipment producers, manufacturers, the designers, the architects. They also participate in that association, those people who provide the full complex of the services. And we are in touch because our institute is the research institute. We are not the manufacturers, but we are in touch with the manufacturers. We can hear their demands, and they also see our needs. And by that, we can create a very fruitful way to use the irrigation equipment. In general, we had a serious stimulus in 2015 because the number of the manufacturer was increased. For example, in Tula, in Voronezh, Tatarstan, Tольятти, we have some factories for different types of the irrigation equipment. For example, flexible stems or other types of the tools which can be applied. And of course, we are interested in the organization of the manufacturing. Why? Because it is the region, bordering region, and we have already collected the knowledges and experience. We can use the meteor data in order to create a system which will improve the economics, water or energy resources, and at the same time we will still get everything that we've planned in an agricultural sector. My colleagues said before that now we are facing with the increase of temperature. We are monitoring those issues, and actually I wouldn't say that the temperature is increased in a large manner, but we have some peaks. For example, the peak of the drought and other type of the peaks. And without comprehensive approach, it will be difficult to resolve those problems. And of course, I think that it is 100% great idea to create energy efficiency clusters and to implement and to manufacture equipment for irrigation on the territory of the Central Asia. We will try to explain to our manufacturers your offers, for example. Tomorrow or today, we will conduct the series of meetings with the stakeholders. And you worked, Mrs. Nana Skau, you worked a lot in different regions, Afghanistan, Mongolia, and others. This is like just an example. I am interested more in countries like Pakistan, Mongolia, as the representative of the United Nations. What do you think, in your opinion, are right decision in regard of the nexus?
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we heard before, water is life, and water knows no boundaries, doesn't know the borders. Thank you so much for bringing this nexus approach to the table today. Because we're not really going anywhere, we're only talking about things in silos, water uniquely, or food security uniquely, or energy uniquely. We actually need this combined approach, so I am happy to see this today. I am representing a sector where we're investing a lot in food security from agricultural angles. And of course, all the solutions that we've seen today are really relevant for today, but unfortunately may not really solve all the problems for tomorrow. In Armenia, we've had up to 90% losses of water. So while we may solve this for a short while, it's not necessarily the only key that we have. We actually need to look at different inputs. We need to work with our populations to change some of the behaviors. We are living in areas where poverty rates are really high, as well as food security rates. So when we're talking about food security, we, as the World Food Programme, of course, are investing a lot in new technologies, drip irrigation, for example, or actually just working with people. One of my jokes to a colleague this morning was, do you know what your water footprint is? Because we're all talking about it, but we don't necessarily relate it to ourselves. It costs 125 liters of water to produce one apple. No matter where I've been in the world, I don't think our grandchildren or your grandchildren will be able to eat an apple in the future if we're not combining the approaches of the nexus. So, what can we do? What is our call for action, and how can we come around it? It's simply, when we're working in nexus in projects, is not just to think about water as one resource, or agriculture as one resource, or new technologies as one resource. As you can see up on the screen, we have different types of levels where we're talking about individual, group, and systemic levels. All those three elements interact just as much as the nexus does. But we think about it as community resilience, and we've heard today about Central Asia being landlocked. So think about Central Asia generating much more resilience in the area. We do need to work on social behavior change as well. And we do that a lot in Armenia. After '91, where most of the irrigation challenge all fell apart, I've been to communities where we reinstalled water after 30 years. They sat like this, they opened the tap, and they were sitting, and they were watching, and they were watching, and they were celebrating. So we realized that we actually also need to educate our populations in understanding that even if we solve the problem of today for tomorrow, we haven't solved it for the next 10 years, and we do need to start thinking about that. So again, let me ask you, on an individual level, are you ever talking about your water footprints? Do you even know how much water goes into producing this? No. And we need to start thinking about that more from consumer and not just thinking that we solve it by putting in these fantastic technologies, because it's also about how we behave. You asked me about my experiences. My experience is that many places in the world, no matter where I've been, we forget the water is a resource that is costly, that it actually has a value. I am Danish, and I'm really used to the fact that I open the tap water and I can drink whatever I have. I don't really think about how I am preserving it, how I am contributing to reutilization of it, how I'm preserving it. I don't think I eat my apple, my 125 liters of water. Sometimes I only eat half and I throw it out. Now that is not appropriate behavior. So while I think for the rest, I really think that we need to think about working on these 3 different levels, on the individual levels, on the group levels. The group levels here is you, consumers, farmers, everything else, and then of course the systemic levels that we've heard today. What is the national legislation that can be put in place to change the way we do, to preserve the elements, to protect and to plan, and maybe even produce. So thank you so much.
А давайте я задам вопрос.
I would like to ask the question and ask the auditory. Does anybody collected the water footprint in their maybe personal lives or in general, the Department of the Sustainable Development? How many of you? Yes, Nano, you are right. Nobody has tried to evaluate it, to calculate it, but we will try to do that because this exercise is pretty useful, I'm sure. If
Page where you can check. Sorry, there is a homepage where you can go up and check what is your water footprint. It's very interesting.
Типа калькулятора?
is it a type of the calculator?
You can go in and check how much water you are, just whatever it is that you're using every day, not just for washing hands, but in general. Thank you.
Спасибо. Наш последний
Thank you so much. And the last but not least speaker, Mr. Hajimatov, and tomorrow we will cite a multilateral agreement. It will be signed by the Minister of the Water Resources, the head of our bank, and the official United Nations representative. Sukhrov, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. But before I start my presentation, I would like to support my colleague, because when we talk about nexus, there is a cross-cutting. And thank you for raising the question on the community resilience. Why? Because when we talk about the food or water issues, we always forget about the key element. It is the human being. And I would like, after lunchtime, when we'll talk about the corridors, infrastructures, I would like to ask all of us to remember about the soft component. In the Eurasian Development Bank representative, we always mention human beings, because we need to provide all of the conditions for the human beings in order to fulfill everything in a proper manner. For example, the behavior in villages, in cities, in districts. So we need to start this work from people, just from people, and then on that people implement all of the needed programs. And about my speech, I first of all would like to tell the fact that Kazakhstan is the 5th country where I work, and 5th country where water resources is the priority for the national development, for the national security. And it is the first time when I see that the Regional Development Bank has created a systematic, scientific, comprehensive approach and includes a lot of stakeholders and players into that process. So that is why congratulations to Eurasian Development Bank for creation of such platform. And the nexus is not a secret for anybody. We know that in a regional sustainability context in Central Asia, the questions related to the energy resources and food and water are the most important, and especially the chairman of the Eurasian Development Bank, during his speech during the opening remark, he mentioned that importance, that it is a main sector in area for the development in Central Asia. Of course, due to the climate change, we are facing with the serious issues. Central Asia and Central Asian countries really depend on water resource, because in some of the countries GDP related to the water is approximately to 10 to 10.5%. The number of the people who are involved in the agriculture, and the agriculture is related to the water, it is around 20 to 25% of the population who is ready to work. And the situation could become even worse because of the diseases, the chronic diseases. By all of that, the limitation of the water resources, this is a key element for the development of the region, and it influences in a negative manner on a population which is around 75 million of people. It all means that the interaction requests the comprehensive approach, because the resolution of this problem depends on several factors. And first of all, we need to create a proper cooperation between of the countries in regard of the Aral, Sirdarya. That is why the role of the fund is very popular, and I'm sure it's very relevant to today's discussion. Second, we need to increase the usage of the current water system. We need to modernize them, and we try to think about the second usage of the water. Third, we need to create an alternatives by preparation of the salt water in the seas or oceans. And in Kazakhstan, all of those factors are reflected in a plan for 2024-2030. And nowadays we are working on the initiatives directed on the cardization and also to reach all of the goals of that concept. That is why we are very happy that Eurasian Development Bank was interested in that sector. And of course, this project will allow us to increase the outcomes with the help of the digitalization, water resources management, creation of the regional centers of the modern irrigation. I mean, we talked about it, the creation of the conditions, service centers to make the business involved into all of that processes, and also the development and creation of the normative base, the legislation, some regulations. That is why when we talk about digitalization, we really try to support all of the initiatives from government and from population on digitalization. That is why this initiatives that we are talking about, that the digitalization of all of the water management with the help of the report or calculations or the usage of the transboundary corridors. Of course, everything is very important. And the initiative that was launched together with the Ministry of the Water Resources and the Eurasian Development Bank showed its interest to participate, and I would like to say that it is an open platform. Every participant, maybe not those who are today here, but maybe you can share with this information. We need to mobilize not only the financial resources, but also the competencies, the knowledges, the mechanisms which are needed for the country and for the region. Thank you so much. I would like to stop here. And again, thank you so much for the creation of the platform for cooperation. Great. Maybe you have some questions or comments to each other. If not, I would like to finish our session with the question and answers session. You should provide an answer within 30 seconds. In your opinion, the most important thing that have to be done right now, right here, not in 20 years, but during next couple of months. For me, personally, it is a digital water management. The rest is not that important, but for you.
Да, я вижу, вот у вас огонь в глазах, давайте.
I see your eyes are keen. This was discussed by all the panelists, and I agree that the trend of water shortage will deepen, and that's why one of the big resources which is not efficiently used is water saving. So we need to implement water energy saving technologies, because the infrastructure is outdated. It's a Soviet legacy, and so it needs to be upgraded. And in some areas in Central Asia, up to 40–50% of water is going into the sand, and it's a resource which is underappreciated. And the second issue is automation of accounting, forecasting water resources, implementing digitalization. It's most pressing. So tomorrow the agreement will be signed of your bank with the Ministry of Water Resources, and UNDP is to be supported, and it needs to be expanded for the entire region. Digital accounting, if you do this in the old chain from the transboundary rivers to the field, allows to save 12% of water. That would be enough to overcome the water shortage by 2028. In addition to what has been said, I'd like to add two things that needed to be done in the next 2 years. We need to provide qualitative potable water for each person. Kazakhstan has an ambitious goal in 2 years to tackle this problem. Secondly, we need to study deep the processes that are happening now, and before implementing projects, we need to know scientific basis. Due to climate change, there is no lack of rainfall. The rainfall comes from the Atlantic cycle through the Europe. And secondly, what we need to know is that the nature can clean itself. So the water has a tendency to clean itself. We need to know this and be conscious of this. And thirdly, what we need to do, and it's quite important, is to everyone should learn to save water, from children to adults. So can we teach this, or can we stimulate this or motivate this by money? All of this.
I think we need to engage more with the private sector, because water as a resource has been really undervalued. That to create new innovations for the future, Because as I said before, the innovations we have today are not going to be sufficient for the challenges of tomorrow due to climate change and everything else. Thank you.
Очень важно, спасибо.
I would say encourage private sector participation for affordable technological solutions for food and water energy security. But I would also like to add that encouraging private sector would mean having an enabling policy environment as well as sector reforms. Thank you.
Второй голос в пользу вовлечения частного сектора.
Second voice to support the private sector. The government cannot tackle this problem on its own. Here I've divided what we can do today and what we're going to do in the nearest future and in the long term. What we can do from tomorrow, many who have arrived here, let's not give our towels to the laundry, but use them several days. And as to the several month issues, it's digitalization and accuracy of forecasts. And if we're to talk in the long run, it's to optimize resources through regionalization. I believe it's quite important too. Nana, what is the footprint of one towel which is not given to laundry? 50 liters, 100 liters?
But I will check it for you and let you know later.
Michael?
Yeah, immediate actions. I think we have initiated a very good collaboration with the Eurasian Development Bank, which basically was kicked off in the context of signing a joint declaration during UNIDO's last general conference. And we have now been working on a working paper to look specifically on the water irrigation sector. I would like that we continue these discussions, that we deepen our cooperation. I mentioned earlier we are a technical assistance agency, so if we perhaps together can secure funding to develop a proper program document that captures all the complexities that we've been discussing about cross-boundary requirements. We talk about digitization, we talked about drinking water, sanitation. I would add to that maybe also smart agriculture. It's a large service offering that we have in our organization to see that we go about this speedy, but with a holistic approach and also a fully inclusive stakeholder consultative process with stakeholders involved.
Спасибо, Сергей.
I'm an engineer, and I would say that what needs to be done fast, or what can be done fast, is to raise the KPI of canals, of hydrotechnical structures. We have similar diseases. 60% of irrigation canals are in the bed, in the soil bed, and there is a big filtration. And also there are losses of water which comes to irrigation by transit, and then it's dumped into water intake reservoirs. So the participants has summarized that it's effective irrigation, raising KPI of canals, water accounting, water saving culture, and engaging private sector so that the government and international organizations won't work in a silo. And what is in store for Eurasian Development Bank? The funding, we are in this nexus through the hydropower, but now we are more and more interested in water, We want to be active in this area. We've gave a big commitment to technical assistance on water. For us, it's a solid money, part of our portfolio of technical assistance. We're continuing a series of detailed analytics on these issues. And I'm not going to compete with the lunch because this war would be lost. So I wish you bon appetit, and thank you so much for your keen attention. Tomorrow at 11:30, we're going to continue to discuss water in the context of potable drinking water. Thank you and bon appetit.
Участники форума, просьба не расходиться, потому что с обедом мы еще некоторое количество времени подождем, для того, чтобы мы с вами услышали порцию еще очень важной и очень нужной информации. Сейчас, по окончанию текущей сессии, после того, как все спикеры получат сертификаты и, кстати, сделают общую фотографию, так что спикеры тоже не разбегайтесь, пожалуйста. Обед случится у нас чуточку попозже. Я больше чем уверен, что у нас с вами хватит терпения дождаться и послушать еще.
Lunch is to be served later, after we will hear some important information.
We will make a photograph all together right now. Thank you very much. Спасибо большое. Занимайте, пожалуйста, места в зале. А тем временем на сцену с огромным удовольствием я приглашаю заместителя председателя правления Евразийского банка развития Руслана Доленова.
Конечно, вода – это стихия, но Евразийский банк развития также участвует в благотворительности. Как международная организация,
As an international organization, we are always ready to support in a difficult situation. Last time, Eurasian Bank has supported Turkish Republic for $1 billion to alleviate aftermath of the earthquake. This time, in June, Eurasian Development Bank has supported Armenia for $250,000 to liquidate the consequences of emergencies. And in spring, Kazakhstan, Eurasian Development Bank has provided support for the floods, and Bezbergemes Foundation, Karat Perizat, the chair of this fund, is here. And in addition to material participation, the Eurasian Development Bank has participated as volunteers to liquidate the consequences of the floods that has happened in Kazakhstan in spring. So Karat Perizat is here, and he will talk on how this foundation works and how the aid is provided. So Perizat is here. More than 15,000 volunteers. Aktobe Oblast in the west, 170 tons of humanitarian aid. Different areas in the north, Kostanay province, Arkalik, 20 tons of humanitarian aid. Western Kazakhstan province, 100 tons of humanitarian aid. Karaganda province, 20 tons of humanitarian aid, 50 gensets. Atirau province, North Kazakhstan province, Petropavlovsk, 60 tons of humanitarian aid. Construction materials have been purchased and sent to Atirau Oblast, Kulsary. We'd like to thank Eurasian Bank of Development for their support. Probably the guests are asking what the foundation Bezbergemes Kazakhstan is doing here today. I'd like to express our gratitude. I am so thrilled, so anxious. I'd like to thank the management of the Eurasian Development Bank for being one of the first to respond and to send to our foundation $1 million US. According to official statistics, more than 120,000 people were evacuated. And 4,000 people are still remaining in evacuation shelters. 12,000 houses were flooded, as well as 20,000 summer house plots. And the funds that has been provided by the Eurasian Development Bank, we've purchased construction materials in Aktobe province, as well as Atira province and Kulsara city. The volunteers of Bezbergemes Foundation are providing support to those affected. The volume of work, it's difficult to show in one video. The humanitarian aid was provided by the National Guard, by their cargo jets. I'd like to thank, on behalf of those affected, to read and to say it's one thing, but to see with their own eyes and to sleep on a wet floor in wet clothes, it's quite devastating. So Eurasian Development Bank is not only working in the world of finance and economy, as we all see, but there is a special attention given to the social life, developing key issues and resources, and providing resources for the welfare. And the Foundation Bezbergemes Kazakhstan is the only foundation in Central Asia which for 8 months provides humanitarian aid to Palestine, to the Gaza Strip. And there are 10,000 volunteers in the international team. I'm Perizat Kairat, and I'm also a volunteer from Central Asia. This is the only volunteer to the Gaza Strip. And I've during Kurban Bayram, we delivered 140 tons of wheat and sugar from the people, from a person of Kazakhstan, because these funds were collected 397 million tenge. So I'm especially grateful to you all, and success to you all. Thank you so much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we invite all the participants to the lunch at Brasserie. And we remind you that at 15:30 in the small hall, there will be presentation Eurasian transport carcasses, or Eurasian transport system.